Welcome to another edition of Open Mic Podcast, home edition, and today we are live with Kevin Dietz. Good afternoon, Kevin.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm great. How are you and the family? Everybody staying safe?
Yeah, everybody's doing good. We're hanging in there.
Great. Well, our first guest today, we're going to go live for 2 hours today, but our first guest has got a lot of information for us. His name is Mark Campbell. He is the CEO of Medkinect, which is a medical testing company. And I have lots of questions about all of this testing that's going on. And I want to ask him a lot of questions about that. But people out there may know Mark's name because he's played at the University of Michigan. He was a former NFL player for Cleveland, Buffalo, and New Orleans. And he had COVID-19, and he's going to talk to us about how bad that was. He's talked to Trump recently in person. He's talked to our Governor Whitmer about things that are happening. And so let's bring him on to answer some of our questions, Kevin.
Hey,
Hi, Mark.
Hi, guys. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I mean, this is really a handsome threesome right now.
You look pretty good for a guy who had COVID-19.
Well, you know, and not that I want to make light of it, but look, you're coronavirus away from your goal weight, right? You shed 25 pounds, so you feel a little different, right?
So tell us, when did you get it? How were the symptoms? How did you know you had it?
So basically the middle of March, right around March 15th, started to just kind of run hot. Like I literally felt like my temperature was a little hot, blew it off, and basically said, well, we'll see how it's going tomorrow. And remember, so we're now dating back, 5 weeks ago, right? So it wasn't like in your face quite as much as it is now. Certainly it was a topic of conversation, but it wasn't like, oh my God, my next door neighbor got it, right?
Right.
So we went up north as kind of like our last ski weekend of the season. So, me and my wife, we had 3 kids, good family time. We went up there, came back, felt a little hot from that, kind of blew it off the following day, which was a Tuesday. I was feeling even hotter than the day before. I took my temperature as like 102.6, so, and that's when, they had opened up these drive-through for the screenings at all the hospitals, right? And I drove up there and to be totally honest with you, total waste of time, right? They basically said, we're not going to test you. I'm like, that's what I'm here for. They're not going to test you. Assume that you probably have it. Go home and quarantine for 14 days. And that's where the whole kind of journey began, man. And some people with the different strands of this right now. And by the way, this is morphing. It's doing what we call jumping wells, meaning it's kind of adapting to its environment. So the coronavirus is actually changing a little bit. Hopefully it won't change for the worst. But I ended up having kind of the worst version of it, right? And like literally if we went through all the symptoms of it, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? It's always yes, yes, yes. But I did not have a runny nose, so I'm kind of holding that close to my heart.
Okay, so hold on, Mark. Let's back up a second. Did you say you did not get tested?
Nope.
So that's part of this discussion. I've talked to lots of people who've had it but didn't get tested. So
right.
All of these numbers that we're studying are off by, according to the Los Angeles, I think it was the Los Angeles Times last week, 50 to 80 times more cases than what the numbers are. So we're all watching these numbers, but they're completely wrong. Is that true?
Absolutely. It's so skewed that it's not even close, to be honest with you. That's very, very misleading, right? So I did, to clarify though, Mike, I ended up getting tested, but unfortunately it was when I was admitted to the hospital 12 days later from that day, right? So, if you think about it, like the little things, right? Like if I would have known, if I was tested, I would have known what the result is. I'm an educated guy. I understand they don't want to like swamp all the hospitals or be overwhelmed, but I also would have treated everything differently. I would have treated it more seriously. So when my lungs started to feel like pneumonia was building, I would have went to the hospital probably 2 to 3 days sooner, right? And caused myself all that unnecessary struggle, pain, whatever you want to call it. But I also would have left the hospital sooner, right? So what's the economic savings of 2 or 3 less days in the hospital? It's probably pretty substantial. But that's all because I didn't know.
Interesting. So how long did it take to run its course? I mean, it sounds like you were in bad shape.
Yeah, so I basically had the rough strand of it. It took 17 days in total. So 16 of those days, I had a temp over 101. That was kind of miserable, to be honest with you, right? But I had basically all the other symptoms. But the one that got me, the one I couldn't kind of have my football mentality and tough it out with, was the pneumonia. I mean, basically came to the point, 12 days removed from my first symptom where I was really laboring to breathe. Right. That was the first, I would say there was about 24 hours there. For the first time in my life, I'd tell you guys, honestly, I was threatened for my life. I mean, I wasn't going to openly tell my wife that because I didn't want her to freak out. But it was the first time where I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I knew it wasn't good.
What made you go to the hospital? What was the symptoms? Was it the shortness of breath and the hard breathing?
Yeah, Mike, like I couldn't get a deep breath. Right? Like I could kind of breathe in and out, but no air could satisfy me. Like I couldn't get the oxygen I was looking for. So that we went to Crinton Hospital here in Rochester. It took about 10 minutes to get there. And just kind of going back to that moment, my wife looking back at me the whole time we're driving there. We left the 3 kids, told our 14-year-old to kind of take care of them, right? Just that moment. I don't know if I'll ever forget that. Between just that 10-minute drive of how she was looking at me, like saying, oh my God, I don't want this dude to die in the back of my car right now.
Right.
To, that 5 to 10 minutes in the ER before I was admitted. And then just taking a moment, like it finally hitting me that I said, oh my God, I better tell her that I love her and tell her to tell the kids I love them, because for the first time in my life, I didn't know if I was going to see him again. Right. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. It was very real at that moment.
When this thing first started, Mark, they were talking about the people we had to worry about were these people 60, 70, 80 years old. I mean, here you played college football, you played pro football, you're in good health. I mean, Did it just shock you that this severe case was something that was now in your life, something you were dealing with?
Yeah. I mean, literally to that point, when I had a temperature, I was joking around to my buddies saying, man, I'm it. I'm the guy. I'm COVID-19 positive. Right. And then I made that joke to my wife, of which she didn't let it go, got concerned, and was the one who forced me to go to the hospital. Right. But I didn't think in a million years. We're not in a hot zone. Right. I'm not traveling to different countries. I wouldn't have thought in a million years I'd be the guy. And certainly, I don't want to be a spokesperson for COVID-19, but I just felt like, look, if it can happen to me and my story matters, or some people will listen, even if it's just a few, then it's worth it.
I assume you have no clue how you got it. You don't, unless you have a family member or relative who you were with, or you were at a church service and a bunch of people got it. But do you have any clue?
No, I mean, the only thing I can think of, Mike, like, I think back to that and I keep going to the same moment because I debated, whether or not to grab it or not, but it was a gas pump handle in Oscoda, Michigan, right? So I don't know if that's it. Technically, I don't know, but I kind of feel like I always keep going back to that moment.
Interesting.
And I was with my family, right? So they didn't do anything. I mean, I was with them the whole time. That's the only thing I did differently.
Not a lot of cases up north, though. They're more worried about people from here bringing it up north.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Who knows, man? I don't know. I have no clue. Like my wife doesn't have it. My kids don't have it. I don't know.
You sound great. Are you 100% now, would you say?
Yeah, pretty close, right? I mean, I feel fine. I mean, I'm back working and doing all that stuff, but I just kind of run out of gas a little bit earlier in the day, and I can't go for any. I'm not running any marathons.
Had you ever had pneumonia in your life before that?
Yeah, I did my senior year of high school, so back to 1994.
And I had pneumonia 15 years ago, and it took months to go away.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you're feeling better quickly.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I appreciate that. First of all, Mike, I think this is one of those deals that we don't really know how all this affects what the results will be, right? And the hard part about the part that kind of bothers me, and I'm not blaming anybody, but you can't get direct answers as a patient, right? You ask direct questions, but the physicians, they don't want to tell you a direct answer because they don't want to be held either accountable or they just are saying, look, we don't know the answer. So that's hard, right? I mean, typically when you always go to the doctor, they say, you got this, this is how we're going to treat it. This was different. For a lot of it, they can't give you definitive answers.
So I want to ask you a little bit about testing again, because it seems like there aren't enough tests. We can't get testing because there aren't enough tests, but aren't there tests out there, even if they're not, certain, 100% certain that they're going to be accurate?
Sure.
There's a lot of people who make tests, but they're always using tests from certain companies, is what I'm reading. And it just seems like it would have been helpful even to get an idea if you got some test that said, oh, you're likely to be positive or you are positive.
Yeah. So that's kind of a twofold question, right? So at a laboratory level, it's regarding testing in general, right? So we own a molecular testing lab, right? Or PCR testing. It's called IOBP. It's based out of Westchester, Ohio, and Nashville, Tennessee. So, we're very up to date with what's happening, and we're actually running COVID testing as we speak, right? So the problem is that, most of our states and most of our major insurance payers are basically using the bigger laboratories, which they've made arrangements with, which are LabCorp and Quest Diagnostics. So now you got an East Coast lab and a West Coast lab basically handling all of, in this case, the state of Michigan's sampling. So the average response time, even if things are, FedEx, everything is procured appropriately, they have all the patient information, there's no way they're going to be able to respond in a quick amount of time. It's just impossible logistically, especially with the volume. I mean, if you look at the COVID tracking numbers, we're doing consistently over 150,000 samples per day. There's no way they can keep up with all that, right? So from our point of view, we're saying, look, we can help. We want to help. We want to provide testing. We know that the test, so just so you guys kind of understand, if we were to receive a test sample, it's going to take us roughly 6 to 8 hours to run that through the machine and confirm results. So then it comes down to, okay, how quickly can you get those answers back to the physician treating the patient? And that's how it works. So the fact that for me personally, it took me 5 days, right, to get my results. Ironically, I was discharged the day that they gave me my results. I'm like, thanks for nothing, right? I mean, I already knew I had it at that point. But I mean, I've talked to people that have waited 12 days or so. So, Detroit, right, is what, the second or third largest population of COVID-19 patients, New York, New Orleans, Detroit, but yet we're 10th, 11th in actually having testing supplies. It's just, it's not right.
Mark, let's break it down for me and maybe somebody who's watching this. So I know that there's the swab that goes up the nose. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's some blood test that can check on antibodies. Mm-hmm. And that's like a 15-minute test. Some of them are 15-minute tests that our first responders in Detroit are getting. Mm-hmm. Are there other tests besides those two right now?
Yeah, so there is one that goes way up, your nasal cavity. It's very long. That's the one that most hospitals are using. That's one that our laboratory uses now. That is your most accurate test, right? But also takes a little bit longer. Then Abbott Laboratories came out with a product that just actually swabs like inside your nose, right? So the one that goes way up your nasal cavity is obviously a little bit uncomfortable. The one that swabs your nose is kind of no big deal. That is like a 15-minute response. Then there's other kinds. Obviously, the antibody test you're referencing to, which I have not have that done. And in fact, I do have an appointment to go get the plasma done so we can see hopefully if I can help this cause. There are roughly, guys, I want to say 70 different tests coming out here in the next 30 days. Now, whether they get through the FDA approval, that's going to kind of change the game, right? Of how quickly you can get results. How big of a deal is this going to be? Is everyone going to have to take a test before they come back to work? There's a lot of pieces to this, and how you address that will be dependent on the testing available. No matter what the answer is, Mike, Kevin, I mean, no matter what that answer is, you still have to take that sample because we're not sure about the accuracy, right? It just kind of gives you a yes or no kind of answer. We'll have to take those and send it back to the laboratory for confirmation.
So, but this 15-minute test that I, saw the mayor of Detroit talking about, that the first responders, the police department are taking to clear them to get back to work. Mm-hmm. Why can't those be at every CVS in every Walgreens that just everybody can walk in and get a quick 15-minute test to either say we have it or don't have it. We're a carrier of it, which I have another question about being a carrier, because you hear all about the carriers being asymptomatic.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to show up as having it or not? But my first question, I guess, is why can't these tests be given to everybody right now?
Well, look, as bad as it sounds, you can always follow the money, right? So simply from that being put, is right now they're probably working out different deals with larger corporations and probably working out deals with the government to try to see what they can sell it for. And they're probably going to take some time to themselves with people much more educated than me in making a decision. To your point, though, certainly I don't see it as, it could be a possibility that it moves to CVS. They're trying to mass produce these as we speak. So I'm sure that has a part of it. But unfortunately, like anything with business, same thing with, hydroxychloroquine. I mean, you can follow the money with a lot of this stuff, and that's your reasoning for it one way or the other.
Did you take some of that malaria drug?
Yeah. Okay. So quick story, right? So I'm in the hospital and, I feel like hell. There's no other way to say it. Like literally this thing is kicking my ass. I'm losing this battle. I feel like I'm, George Foreman fighting Muhammad Ali near the end of the match, right? Just running out of gas. And the doctor came in. My buddy Troy, who was actually my business partner, sent me a text. And, it was a really long word. I'm like, Jesus, I can't pronounce that, so, but it said the malaria drug. I'm like, perfect. I can work with that. Right. So the doctor came in and I said, hey, is there any way, am I going to be prescribed this malaria drug? So then she said, well, yes, actually, that's what we're going to administer today. It's called Plaquenil. So that is the brand name. So now, I'm looking at the whole thing. I'm like, okay, it's known as the malaria drug. It's known as Plaquenil, right? It's known as hydroxychloroquine. I'm thinking to myself, like, what is this thing even called? And also, I had to look at my notes, also called HCQ, right? So I was trying to figure it out, but yeah, they.
So Mark, what point in your treatment did they decide to give it to you? Because I was told by an ER doc friend, that right before they put you on the ventilator, which don't go on the ventilator if you don't have to, they'll try it. That's what he told me. So why did you get it? When did you get it? Was it optional?
Yeah, so mine was, so when I got to the hospital, my pulse ox was 86. Okay, I don't know what ventilator, what it should be for that. I know that you had to have a 96 of your pulse ox with no breathing, no oxygen support in order to leave. So that was kind of my mission. I knew I didn't want to be on a ventilator, that's for sure. My sister is by trade a CRNA, and I remember her just telling me while this was kind of going on, she was telling me like, look, if something happens to go to the hospital, don't go on a ventilator. You're going to be on that thing for 30 days sedated. Of course, do what you have to do, but fight against it. So I remember I had that kind of in my mind. But, I'm sick. Picture like the worst flu you've ever had. Picture that feeling, and then you're trying to rationalize things in your head. Well, you just don't work quite as well, right? You're not hitting on all cylinders. So, yeah, they ended up moving me into the COVID floor, which was 4 or 5. For 24 hours, they basically didn't do anything other than IV, zinc, and a Z-Pack. So after 24 hours, I'm like, this isn't working. I feel the same as I did the day before. That's when I mentioned, the HCQ to the physician, and she said, yeah. So on day 2 that I was there, they gave me the hydroxychloroquine.
Okay.
But within 8 to 12 hours, okay, I know it doesn't work for everyone. Within 8 to 12 hours, I already started to feel better. I would tell you, within 24 hours, I felt decently better. Within 48 hours, I had already made the decision that I want to go home. So I was there, essentially.
Wow.
That's it. Out of the 4 days, by the 3rd day, I was like, man, I want to get out of here. I want to go home. That's how quickly it worked.
So there was a controversy out here, whether or not to use this drug or not. But it sounds like there wasn't much of a controversy in the hospital, that the doctors were willing to give it to people to at least give it a try to see if it worked.
Hell no, Kevin. There was no concern in my mind. I'll tell you what, I don't care if you're Republican or you're Democrat, if you're yellow, black, yellow, or white, doesn't matter to me. When you're in that position, I would like to look at anybody and ask them the question, if you want to take that right now, if it has a chance to help, and see what their answer is. It's a no-brainer, right? When you feel like hell and you feel like, man, this is not good, we'll take anything if we're told we can help. And there was minimal risk that the doctor presented to me.
So you get out,
Yep.
and I hear that the president contacted you or somebody from his office and wanted to see you after you had this.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
All right. So that was Friday night. I want to say on Thursday, I went on CNN and did that show with John King. And then on Friday, it was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I was on a Zoom call with Lloyd Carr, Brian Greasy, and Rob Sweat, just the four of us, just basically, essentially just looking up Lloyd's nose, because this is the first time I ever did a Zoom call. I'm trying to figure out how to work it, right? So I got a text in the middle of that, and it's basically saying, hey, this is Andrew Giuliani from the White House. Give me a call when you get a chance. And I'm like, is this real? What is this, right? So it's Rudy Giuliani's son, right? So I ended up calling him back, and he just said, hey, we're aware of your situation here at the White House. We're concerned about you. President Trump asked me to call you to see how you're doing. And, we talked about just the symptoms, everything I went to for about 10 minutes. Then he said, hey, early next week, we're going to do this coronavirus media session. We'd love for you to be a part of it. Would you be interested or willing to do that? And I said, sure, man. I've already shared my story this far with the intent of, getting some people to open their minds, to treat it a little seriously, so they realize whether you're healthy or not, you're young, you're old, you're athletic, you're not athletic. It can affect anybody.
Did you get on a commercial plane, or did they come get you?
I'm sorry, Kevin?
Did you get on a commercial plane to go out there, or did they come and get you?
I did, man. They should have.
They should have sent the plane.
Yeah, send it. I kept on telling them, just 2 words, send it.
Oh, risky behavior.
Yeah, man. So there was 3 people on my flight.
3 people.
So, all right. So take us through what happened. You get to the White House.
Yeah. So, we get there. The schedule at this point. So remember, we're going from Friday night to Tuesday morning. So the session was Tuesday morning. So over the course of, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that schedule probably changed 6 times. Just changing dates, and a little bit loose with the information of what they really want from us, right? I knew there'd be a board of roughly 6 to 10 people. That's all I really knew. But I said, all right, well, whatever direction this goes, I'm going to prepare as if, I'm going to have an opportunity to talk about small business and my situation and, nonprofit organizations. I just wanted to be prepared. And, if anything, I'm glad I did that, because it started to organize some thoughts in my head. But anyways, while we were out there, so think about it. I check into the hotel. The hotel's dead. The restaurants are closed. The gym is closed. I was kind of, for whatever reason, forgot. I kind of forgot that by the time you get there, you're kind of thinking like, okay, it's going to be nice and hooked up by the White House. And it was bare minimum, man.
Were people wearing masks?
Yeah. Yeah, there was people wearing masks. Not in the White House, though, right? So just kind of walking around. So the hotel was 4 blocks away. And I'll kind of try to shorten this version down. If I go through the whole thing with all the details like I do for some of my buddies, it's literally an hour story, right? And that's for all the good.
Hit the highlights.
You stole something from the White House, didn't you? You stole something.
Yeah, man. Oh, I was stuffing my pockets everywhere. Like, Dad, this is a presidential napkin. I'm gonna just take it and be happy. Yeah. So, but we go in. So you go through 3 different security checks, one being X-ray, and then right when you come in, they take you to the medical tent, right? The medical office. And there they did like a little bit of a screening. They did. So I took that 15-minute Abbott test of the swab of the nose, and they take your temperature. Now, throughout the day, before you meet anybody, they take your temperature again. So I probably had 5 or 6 times where they kept on taking your temperature. So that's kind of like, after you take the test, you're negative. They still kind of check on you, see if your temperature's rising, right? All right. So the kind of major points of it were, certainly we got together. There's a total of 8 people. They kept on kind of pulling different people apart to do media interviews. So I probably did 12 different interviews.
Who were you interacting with? Who was your handler there? You hadn't met the president.
Yeah, so mine specifically was Andrew Giuliani.
Okay.
Right. And then
you knew him. How did you know him before?
I didn't. So he called. I played in New Orleans last, and I'm buddies with, people that are still there, Sean Payton and Breeze and all those guys. So he called, he called Sean Payton, and he got his number from, him, and gave Andrew my number.
Got it.
That's how he reached out. So, but he was showing me around, and they gave us like this little kind of mini tour. Of course, I'm like, no. Where's like the tunnel? And like, show me behind the scene. Where's the secret doors? And he just wouldn't share that kind of stuff. I said, well, I'm going on an open mic. I got to have something. Right. So there was a lot of hurry up and wait, but we ended up sitting with the vice president probably for, God, he probably talked to us around his table in his office. His office is enormous, by the way. I mean, he's got a table in there that probably holds 20, 25 people, something like that. And he's got a huge balcony. He's in the Eisenhower building. So in the Eisenhower building, you can have your phone. So I'm taking pictures. I'm like, can I take a selfie with Vice President Pence? I decided against it, but I should have went for it. All those kind of things. But he was great. Very, very mild-mannered. Speaks. You really have to pay attention to him speaking, but he doesn't just talk to talk, as you guys might assume, right? Super nice guy, but you really have to pay attention to what he's saying. And usually when he does speak, it's something that holds some weight or profound. So hung out with him for a little bit, did a bunch of pictures. Then I did a couple of interviews with just me and him, which I thought was pretty cool. Then they said, okay, we're going to take you down to the cabinet room. So we went down there. We waited about another half hour for President Trump to come. And then, I don't know if you guys saw that media session or not, but maybe I don't know. It was roughly 35, 40 minutes, something like that. It was great. And then after that, the cool part was he took us back to the Oval Office. Oh, nice. So he did the whole picture thing, and he probably spent, look, it's a semicircle, so I'm not going to say it's like one-on-one, just the two of you hanging out with some Secret Service, but he probably talked to me alone, probably for about 10 minutes and asked me all sorts of sports questions and this or that. We talked a little bit about small business, and then he invited me back out to golf when everything kind of settles down.
Come on.
So we are best friends now.
I see that. Do you have you got his text? You got his cell phone?
Yeah. He's a little bit. I'm taking it as this is only the really inner circle, Mike, because he said, why don't you reach out to my secretary? All his best friends. That's how.
You got some cool photos, though. I saw in your social media some pretty cool photos of you in the Oval Office.
Yeah, so, look, once in a lifetime, right?
Did you shake his hand?
Nope.
Nobody had masks on in his office?
No, nobody had masks in there.
You were within 6 feet from him, I assume?
Not supposed to be. Did I violate? Possibly.
You leaned in a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'm like, I'm going to get a photo with him. I'm not going to be 6 feet away. So made some last-minute adjustments.
So when you were in the Oval Office with him, it was you and him, of course, Secret Service and everything. But were there other people, other victims who had COVID-19, or was it really just you and him?
No, there was. It was kind of a semicircle, right? So everyone kind of stayed back to give that person or couple, because there was a lot of couples there amongst those 8 people, to try to give them some personal time, so to speak. So it was like, that circle was probably 15 to 20 feet away. So, I mean, it was kind of, look, you felt like, here's what I'll tell you. No matter what you think about, President Trump, man, I'll tell you, behind closed doors, you get a little bit of a different guy, right? Very, very personable. Certainly likes to speak. There's no doubt about it. But he lets you answer his questions, and he was funny. He was engaging. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, doing the interview circuit of kind of everything that came with it, he might have been, aside from you two, one of the easiest guys to get interviewed by. It's just very, very comfortable.
Were you able to ask, or were you able to tell him your concerns about the testing? Did you tell him you have a testing lab and that nobody wants your tests?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially, I mentioned that sort of thing. And he said, well, we'll jump on top of it. Some of that's got to go through the state and all that. He goes, but basically keep me in the loop. And, he asked me to kind of send this kind of letter in, so to speak, of which I actually did Friday. So we'll see what comes back from that.
So Mark, after that experience, like, what is your sense as to why they wanted you there? And the questions you said he asked you a lot about sports and stuff. Was he grilling you to try to fix this horrible issue that we're all going through right now, or did it sounds like Pence was talking to you more, but like I'm struggling with why you were there. What was the purpose of the visit?
That's a great question, in all honesty, right? Because there was times where I'm like, what the hell am I doing here right now?
You'd think he'd have really important things to do right now.
Sure.
Talking about sports. So I'm just curious. I'm really curious, like, what's your sense, what's your gut, why you were there?
Yeah, so I think it was, I guess in retrospect now, and I pay attention to some of the emails and the conversations that were had, it was really Vice President Pence's platform or program to have this coronavirus meeting. And the purpose of it was to share some stories of knowledge and experience. And most importantly, to show, look, a lot of people are totally fine from this. And with all the negative news out there, I mean, it's everywhere we look right now, right? It's pow, boom, bang. And it's always like, it's so bad. And don't get me wrong, it is. But also there are stories of hope and people that have gone through it and listened to it and learned from it. Avoid those things so you don't have to go through it. I think that was the purpose of it, right? That's why it was kind of a small group. And I certainly think on the president's agenda, he wanted to be a part of it just because he probably, and I don't want to speak for him, but my guess is to talk about, the hydroxychloroquine, right? Because that's a hot topic for him. And my guess is that was part of it. Also, the other really interesting part, Mike, that make you think about it a little bit is one of the other 8 people was Representative Karen Whitsett, who is here in Detroit, a Democrat. So she had to deal with it, right? And she was super thankful to him because she also had the hydroxychloroquine. And she actually mentioned that I would have died if I did not get this. So what an opportunity for him to kind of, one, work with the other side, 2, kind of throw it in their face. Look, one of yours needed it the worst, and it's here to help.
So that's interesting because I missed that part when you were sharing the original story. So your sense in hindsight is he's still, for some reason, pushing that drug pretty darn hard. Whether or not he, as some have alleged, that he owns part of that company or what. So that, you think that was the centerpiece reason why you were, had you not taken that drug, had you not recovered in full, had you not felt better after 4 or 6 hours like you shared a few minutes ago, you don't think you would have been invited?
No, I think I know I would have been invited, actually, Mike, because there was 8 people there and only 3 of them took it. Okay, so, and they were all people from Michigan, by the way, out of those, right? So I know I would have been invited. I just think, look, this is an opportunity to show some good of recovery, probably pretty good for, President Trump to have some nice PR with him as well, right? It's not always going to be negative, to be able to provide hope, survivors, so to speak, which I hate using that word, but I think that was it. Like shed some good light amongst all of this, because otherwise it's just all pretty negative, right? I mean, no matter what you think about President Trump, he's catching a lot of heat. Now you can say, look, some of that's deserved, some of it's based on his Twitter account or his late reactions or Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx, but the truth is that's a lot of heat. So probably for him to have a moment of something good, he probably was like, hell yeah, I'll stop by the meeting. Now he ended up dominating the meeting, which was interesting, but it was all good.
Mark, where was this in the timeline of where Governor Gretchen Whitmer was talking about not allowing it and actually issuing an order that this drug would not be allowed to be used in Michigan? Was this after that controversy was over? Was it in the middle of it?
So it was right kind of in the middle of all that stuff. In fact, I want to say I received the drug on March 28th, and I want to say whether it be March 30th, April 1st, April 2nd, something like that is when they kind of stopped it, or she kind of stopped it. So it was in the middle of it. And like I would challenge anybody, like I kind of told you guys earlier, I told you guys earlier, like if you were in that situation, I would say the same thing to Governor Whitmer. Like if you were in that situation, would you take it? If you knew it was 50-50, with not any serious risk involved, would you take the drug? Of course you would, right? It's kind of a no-brainer to me.
Absolutely. I don't understand. Listen, I'm not. It's not important whether I agree with our president in a lot of things or not. But that drug, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand the controversy, but you have his his trusted people that he puts on the podiums with him every day saying the opposite of what he's saying. It's just confusing messaging for the public. It's confusing for me. I have friends who I've talked to about it. I have pharmacists who are talking to me about it. Now I'm hearing your story. Your story is very promising. And you didn't have, like you said, you didn't have a choice. The doctors said to you, we're giving you this drug. And you're like, fine, give it to me.
Yeah. Well, they asked me, Mike, I should clarify. They asked if I was willing to do it. And I was like, yes. There wasn't a lot of thought put into it. But yeah,
I would do the same thing tomorrow. Absolutely would do the same thing. I don't understand the FDA process. I don't understand why things are long. They got to do human testing. But you'd think that it's just it's odd. Wouldn't you think it was odd though that the president is pushing a drug if he didn't have? I mean, why is he one drug so hard and risking so much on one drug when his own medical advisors are saying we disagree with you and we don't recommend it? So I don't understand that politically. I don't understand it in any business.
Sure.
Doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to me.
But I mean, the drug, right? Hydroxychloroquine has literally been around for what, 40 years?
Long time.
I mean, it's being used for a whole bunch of different things. I don't know what the agenda he would have. I mean, you could say, hey, he's the owner of Plaquenil. I mean, I don't know. Selfishly, I'll tell you, I don't care. It worked for me, right? And that's what I want people to know. But I don't know, Mike. I honestly, I don't want to just kind of say something here, kind of flip it. I really don't know that answer. I don't know if anybody knows that answer, but certainly I'll tell you this, if you think about, some of the bigger and well-known politicians in our life, whether they're president or governor, or even a well-known state representative, they make a lot of money when they are actually out of office, right? Because of things they did and relationships and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden they're liaisons or, playing these kind of different roles with big insurance companies or, big entities. That's where it's kind of at for them. So you never know how much that whole thing plays a part in it.
What are your thoughts on insurance and health insurance and other insurance these days? You think, what do you think? What's your take on what's going on and why certain things are happening right now?
Boy, it's almost a loaded question. Kind of how I want to answer that, what I feel is true, but also trying to be fair in a general answer, right? Certainly insurance companies, and they'll probably get bailed out here pretty soon is my guess, because they're reporting that, they're doing a lot of things for free. It doesn't say that maybe they're waiving copays, but are they waiving, the deductible? Are they waiving all that? That's all kind of debatable based on the insurance company. But, insurance companies are very, very hard to deal with. So I have two small businesses, right? I have ILDP, which is a molecular testing lab, and I have Medkinect, which is a marketing sales team focused on bracing and, back, ankle, orthotic bracing, right? So we've been in Royal Oak, Michigan for nearly a decade. From day one, I've worked with insurances on trying to get credentialed. It is a constant struggle for the last decade. Like, it's so hard. And, look, we can do this and that, and they just don't care. You start to feel like it's monopolized, right? That it's to all the bigger companies have kind of worked out arrangements and they can do this or that. Maybe they can lower some of their fees for code because they have, an agreement based on volume and all that kind of stuff. Hell, I would welcome that conversation, right? So it's been a struggle, for a long time here, especially right now, right? So not only can we help small business economy right here in our backyard, not only can we be more responsive to what the patient needs are, we're right here and willing to help. With COVID testing specifically right now, it's been hard, man. It's been a struggle. And you kind of feel like, look, if America is built on small business, why in the hell are we not even helping locally in our own state where people are dying or not even able to get the test? Like if you were in Detroit right now, so it feels like a shame, but all I keep doing, man, is just push as best I can and trying to educate people as best I can. And hopefully some things change.
Well, you know how I feel about insurance companies.
You love them. You're big.
I love them. but the truth is I hate them. In my world, the auto insurance, in Michigan, we have 80% less mileage being driven. 80% of the accidents happen while in traffic. When was the last time you two saw traffic in our neighborhoods? I haven't seen any traffic in a month. And my call volume is showing that there's not very many accidents on the road, yet they're only rolling back 10 to 15 to 20% of our rates. That doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. And then you have the business interruption insurance. Businesses, Mark, I'm sure you have policies of business interruption that if something happened, if a fire happened, if a catastrophe happens, you're going to be paid like business as usual. And that's why we pay tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, in premiums. Well, they're not covering this because it's a pandemic. And I've already seen lawsuits. We're looking at some lawsuits to possibly file. I think they're going to be tough lawsuits. I don't think they're going to be easy. But the insurance companies love to take premiums and not pay out. And the auto insurance companies are going to make billions because there's no car accidents. Even if it's a month, they're going to make hundreds of millions, 2 months, 3 months. The companies who take your business interruption insurance, they're just going to deny every claim. And medically, with paying for your stuff, I hope they pay you what you deserve. I hope that they start reimbursing. They open up the tests. They open up the floodgates to get everybody tested. But they're going to make off very well. And that's what's happening. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a great summary of kind of what's going to happen here, and it's hard to watch because we're watching in slow motion, right? It's like being punched in the nuts by Mike Tyson in slow motion, right? It's hard to watch, but it's coming. Sorry for the bad example, but it's. I
think we can all relate.
Yeah, I mean, I just wish there was a way of, look, everybody knows, no matter what side you're on, no matter what company you're with, everybody knows this is wrong, right? Where does the sense of realism come back into this, right? And how are we supposed to have any normalcy if everyone's looking at this as, out of crisis comes opportunity? Don't get me wrong, I understand that, but not when you're screwing people over and when you know you're wrong. I mean, let me ask you a question, Mike, regarding your point of this being a pandemic and not being covered in people's insurance. Is it as simple as saying, look, the hard part about getting this covered or getting insurance companies to pay is simply because it's not specific in that agreement to say pandemic?
Well, I'm reviewing agreements as we speak, and a lot of them do talk about these types of things happening, using the word pandemic, using the word with medical conditions that are outside of the control, acts of God, things like that. Wow. And we're looking for the loopholes. They are, the insurance companies are smart and they don't want to pay claims. They want to take your premiums and they don't want to pay claims. So they have written these policies in such a way that they don't have to pay when something like this happens. There's a lot of smart lawyers looking into this right now. We're going to try to get the courts to interpret this more narrowly and say that this should be a covered loss. Yeah. And, there's a lot of talk about sharing the pain, right? I've talked to business owners who are losing profits, but they don't want to lay off people, but yet they want some of their employees to share the pain. Insurance companies have billions of dollars to pay out claims. They should not just reap the rewards without, in my opinion, without stepping up in our communities and helping the small businesses and helping test and helping do the right thing rather than just making profits. So I'm not sure what the courts are going to do. They're not just going to pay claims. I've not heard of one person just paying claims. I've not heard of one insurance company just paying claims for restaurant owners, small business owners, even though they have business interruption insurance. So, I've heard of some class actions that are seeking certification right now. It's too early. The courts are basically shut down.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's happening right now either, right? So what are
nothing's happening.
Remind me, Mike, what are the 3 Ds? Deny,
delay, defend.
There you go.
Deny, delay, defend. That's right out of Allstate's book, State Farm's book. That's what they're doing. I talked to one of my trial lawyers today on the phone who State Farm is saying, well, we'll go to trial. Now, usually they don't say that because the trial's coming up and they settle. Well, now they got 6 months. And the longer the insurance companies hold on to that money, the more they make because of interest. They're compounding interest every single day. They have no incentive to settle right now because no judge or jury is standing by waiting to whack them. That's the hammer we have.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, don't pay. We'll go to trial, and we win more often than we lose, way more often.
Mm-hmm.
But now when the courts are shut down, Wayne County is telling us we're not going to see juries till maybe August.
Wow.
So that slows down everything.
Right.
And so the insurance companies are winning. They're making billions. They're paying back millions, but who cares? They should be paying back 80%, not 20%. And I put out a Facebook post last week, Mark, and I'll, hopefully this will help you and your family. If you and your wife and if you have kids at the house have cars, but you're not going out, and if you do go out, you're taking one car. Think about garaging the other cars and not paying 90+% of your premiums, or even if it's an older car and it's in the garage, take it off the policy altogether. Now, it's uninsured. You can't drive it. If the garage burns down, you lose the car.
Right.
Or you keep it in a garage state. So I'm getting emails from people after I give out that advice thanking me because everybody's saving hundreds of dollars, if not more, by just calling their agent and tweaking the policies a little bit.
It's simple, right?
Something to think about.
I got my bill from my auto insurance company just yesterday, and they made it real big and clear. We want you to know that we're saving you money by reducing your rate during this time of crisis. And I looked at it. I have 5 cars. I got 3 kids and my wife and I. We got 5 cars. And I did the math on the reduction. It was about 12%. I said, I don't have any cars in any danger anywhere. I've driven 15 miles in 7 weeks. I mean, it's unbelievable. And if you wanted to go try and fight that and say, no, I should get a bigger reduction, they're going to hold on to all that money for the entire time and effort to try and get what would be a realistic. I mean, they should be trying to help families right now. People need money and they're collecting for something, for a service they're not getting. I noticed my gym stopped charging me, and I'm glad they did. I'm not someone who calls and demands stuff, but they stopped, which was good. And if they hadn't, I'd probably quit because
you're a lifetime guy, right? You look like
can't you tell?
Yeah.
Kevin went to the doctor for the first time, Mark, in 50 years. Did you know that? Did you see that episode? Check out Dr.
The whole pandemic happened.
First time since birth that you're a medical professional.
That came out pretty good considering.
Yeah, I'd say great, man. I'd say you've done great.
I'm checking my Facebook posts here. Lots of people are watching, Mark, and one of your high school buddies, Mike Ruzicki, says hello. He wanted me to give you a shout out.
Yeah, there's Mike. Hey, tell Mike, I'm just happy you're not in jail right now. Congratulations.
Didn't he get voted most likely to end up? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, best hair.
Mike's a good buddy. He's doing well. He's in Royal Oak, probably near your
shop. He's not far. Mike's a good guy.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about, Kevin?
You do have a call with Governor Whitmer right now, right? Like today, or are you guys?
Yeah. So, with her staff today, right? So we are. So to her credit, right? She reached out. Obviously, here in Michigan, we have issues with testing. She reached out, and we're talking about some lab testing right now. So we can do all the testing that's needed, right? We already are doing it, to be honest with you, right? So, we're doing, roughly, I want to say just yesterday, we took in about 3,000 samples in one day. But we can take on more, right? So we've done a couple things. We've added a couple machines and, certainly want to play our part of helping out here.
Does the nasal swab that goes up into your brain cavity, does that one talk about antibodies or no?
No. Nope. So it just is like a swab of kind of your inside nose, and then to your point earlier, right? You have your blood draw to see what your antibodies are. It's a finger prick. So when you say blood draw, it can sound much bigger than it is. It's literally like a finger prick.
Okay.
Easy breezy.
And that's the one that tells you antibodies. And what's your research? What's your opinion? And try to explain it to me better than my understanding of if you've had it, like I talked to a buddy on the phone today, he had it, no symptoms, but he had it. He's feeling fine. What's your opinion? Can he get it again?
All right. So great question, right? And I've had some people ask me this, and I even asked this question when I was at the White House. So you guys know, right? And, got a pretty good answer out of Dr. Fauci. So remember I told you guys earlier today, like this thing is kind of quote unquote jumping wells or morphing a little bit. So like I had one of the, bad strands with, like I had every symptom. There are some people, to your point, that like it doesn't affect them. Then you're also talking about, okay, what does your blood type have to do with that? What part does that play in your general health? All those kind of things kind of play a part of it. And what strand, of course, you had. So when you have a buddy that says, hey, I had it, it wasn't bad, he probably, one has great resistant markers within his body. So he handles any virus, he handles better than the average guy. But also he probably had one of the weaker strands, right? So that's why you kind of see this influx or this wide spectrum of different results from a lot of different people. So that's kind of how I would answer a lot of this stuff when it comes down to, can I get it again? No, I can't get the worst part of it again, right? Like I have immunity to that. But because this thing has morphed and there's little changes, it doesn't mean I couldn't get some of those other symptoms. Fortunately for me, I've already got through the crappy part or the worst part of it. I hope, right? We don't know what this thing turns into, but my guess is it's going to kind of quiet down for a bit sometime through the summer. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be back in the fall.
What about the people who they say are carriers with no symptoms? What's the test for that?
So you can take one of those antibodies test, but it's asymptomatic, right? So it will show whether you had it or not. Those are, it's interesting. It's almost like the faceless monster, right, Mike, when you kind of bring that up. And Kevin, we kind of talked about it even before jumping on this. You really don't know what you're fighting against. You're saying, okay, you don't know, there could be thousands of asymptomatic people walking around. Well, the truth is nobody knows, right? We don't know if there's just a handful or there's hundreds of millions or whatever. We don't know because nobody's out testing those people, right? So until we get like people kind of back to work, we're not going to have that kind of answer or that kind of data available until everyone's getting tested, right? How realistic is that? And what's going to be set in at a state level of who needs to get tested, who doesn't, coming back to work? That's the only time we're going to know that answer, Mike.
That part scares me the most.
Yeah. That and COVID-20, which is the zombies.
Yeah, who's the politician who said something like, it's COVID-19, not COVID-1, and it has nothing to do with that? Oh, it was one of Trump's, who's the blonde woman who's always on Fox? I'm blanking on her name. Who?
Laura Ingraham?
No. She works with Trump. She's a lawyer. Her husband's opposite of her and him.
Kelly
Conway.
Yeah.
She came out and on Fox said something like, this isn't the first time we're dealing with this. This is COVID-19. Well, the 19 is the year the strain happened, not that this has happened 19 times. I thought that was hilarious. Awesome. I thought that was hilarious.
We'll see that on Saturday Night Live soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So Kevin touched on the Whitmer comment. How do you think that you're living in Michigan, you're watching her on the news, you see her orders, you've lived through this virus in a horrible way. Do you think she's gone too far with her stay home order?
I see it. I definitely see it from both sides. Since I was a guy that had it and never would have thought in a million years I would have gotten it. I think it's probably a little intense. I think that sometimes the descriptions, right, are the part that's kind of getting her in trouble at this point, in my opinion, right? Of saying you can't get, seed from Home Depot. You can't go fishing. You can't go over to your, family's house or whatever. I think it's asking for trouble. Now, do I think it's wrong? Some of it, I think, maybe a little bit silly, like, why are you getting so descriptive, right? Let people kind of figure this out for themselves. But do I think I should go over to my parents' house who are 86 and 84? Absolutely not. So some of it kind of makes sense. I just think it's a little intense, and I think the descriptive parts of it kind of get her in hot water, because then people feel like they're being violated with their rights. I also think that there's probably a reasoning, right, of why she's being so descriptive, why she's being so, in my opinion, kind of intense with the rules and regulations. And I think a lot of it's driven to show her as a strong, powerful governor, right, which will be attractive to somebody like presidential hopeful Joe Biden.
Right. That'll be interesting. As a lawyer, reading her executive orders, I'm trained to look for loopholes. I'm trained to ask questions. I'm trained to read between the lines and the words and the syllables even. And so I think she's trying to be that specific about and I do think she's pushing it very far. Like, you can't go to your second home. Well, you own that home. Why can't you go to that second home? Is she trying to protect the northern Michigan people from people going up to their cottages? Like, it did that, in the golfing. I have friends who are out in Arizona right now, in Florida, who are golfing. They're doing it very safe. So I think she had to come out because those are the things that people are curious about right now. And I think it is getting in hot water, because you're having governors in other states say, we're going to start relaxing this. But you have lots of people saying, you can relax it all you want, but I'm not coming to that restaurant.
Right.
So I don't disagree with you said, Mark. Maybe she's going a little too far. Maybe you have to rely on people being smart. But then you got these dummies who are all getting together and going to do protests or going to the beach or going to a church. That just isn't smart. Right. It's just not smart. So maybe she's trying to protect us from ourselves because we're not listening, or people aren't. I'm listening, but people aren't listening. I don't know.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say that one of the problems people are having is that they're keeping open things that are making the state money. So, if you can go get lottery tickets, but you can't go get mulch, you're having the same opportunity to get infected to get a lottery ticket as something that you're not allowed to get. So I think she maybe even needed to be tougher if that's what she wanted to do, and just say, look, we're not going to let anybody have any opportunity to catch this thing. But I think it's the fact that there's some things you can do and some things you can't do, and they don't make sense in people's mind why one is more dangerous than the other.
Well said, I think. It gets into like kind of the sticky place, right? When you start getting into Democratic, Republican, and really positioning. Really, it's just negotiating positioning for them and perception, right? You start getting into that murky water, and you start to lose just what's right or wrong here, right? And that's where I've always stood with this of like, look, I don't care what party you are. I told you guys, I didn't really want to share my story of, being contracting the coronavirus. I just felt like it was the right thing to do, and I don't care where you're like, trying to help funding or nonprofits right now. Those are not decisions based on what you believe in. They're based on decisions of helping people, right? And as Michiganders, I wish there was a little more thought of like, look, we're kind of all in this together, but we need to know we're protected by you as well. So, but it just gets kind of lost sometimes, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And the whole political thing. Since this discussion, I'm sitting here thinking, there's dozens of Republican governors who have these stay-at-home orders. This is not. I know there's a few rogue ones who don't, but this is not a Democrat-Republican thing. And I'm trying to think, why would a Republican or a Democrat, okay, Republicans are, people would argue more business-friendly. I don't argue that. I don't think that's true, but that maybe they want the businesses to flourish, and if some people are going to die, but the economy is more important. But I don't think that's true either. I don't see the political line here. I don't know if I personally don't.
Yeah.
I know that there's some Republican governors out there who are not shutting down their states, and I guess we'll see how that plays out for them. And hopefully, the restrictions will ease, and hopefully this will go away, and hopefully it won't come back like, Mark, you kind of suggested a few minutes ago.
All eyes on Georgia.
What did you say, Kevin?
All eyes on Georgia right now. They just opened up. Their gyms are open. Their stores are open. Their bars are open. They opened up.
So was today? Was that today?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that story yet.
I don't think we're ready for quite that, especially with how bad Detroit is right now. But, maybe somewhere up north, that's where you start, right? I don't know. There's no crystal ball with some of this stuff, but unfortunately, every day that we don't, there's a waterfall of effects that I'm not sure we're prepared for. I'd like to think we are, but I'm just not positive, right? Obviously, the economy's getting their butt kicked every single day. Small businesses are getting their butt kicked every single day for the most part. But little things, right? Okay, let's you got severe allergies or Lyme disease. Well, what if someone's not treating your grass? How big of a problem is that going to turn into? Are there going to be ticks? Is it going to turn into, little things like that we don't really think a lot about? But that's coming if we don't address them or have a thought of how to address them quickly.
Well, what about, Mark, when you need a haircut? I mean, you got to keep that hair looking good. That's going to be.
I had a fan here just to kind of blow it while we were doing this, right?
I like to end these interviews on a funny note, so I brought a little humor in. Mark, you are a great guy, and thank you for sharing your story. I'm glad you're healthy. I'm glad you're doing better.
Scary.
Good luck in your businesses. I hope they, and thank you for doing all the testing you're doing, and I hope these insurance companies pay you well. And as new testing comes out and new things come up, maybe we should talk again in the future.
Reach out anytime, man. Thank you for having me, guys. It was a pleasure. Be safe. Be smart. Keep fighting.
Thanks, Mark. Well, that was interesting, Kevin.
That was really good stuff. Really good interview. I mean, he was a big time. He's a big, strong guy, and he was close. I mean, he thought he was going to die. He was worried about telling his family he was going to die. It's unbelievable.
Interesting. What position did he play in college?
Tight end.
Tight end.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Kevin. So we're going to conclude this interview.
Flip right back.
I assume, Ryan, before we go on to our next interview, is that going to, because since we went over a little bit, do we roll right into that, or do we end this session, Ryan, who is our crack podcast engineer?
We're gonna end this one and roll over to the next one.
All right, guys. We'll talk in a minute. Thank you.